let's just get to the new acquisitions. It started with Cam Sutton. And when that news dropped, that was, man, that's a really good signing. Addresses a key need, a key problem with this team. Hours and a day goes by. Emmanuel Moseley signs. Whoa. The Lions are very intent on solving their secondary issues, and not just only through the draft. Changes a lot of draft strategy, draft boards, da-da-da-da-da. And then the Jamal Williams frenzy begins, and there's no real clarity on whether or not he's going to resign. And people in town would like him back, but at what price? Well, scrap that, because it was David Montgomery that ended up coming here on a 3-year deal. And it was, of course, then the re-signings. John Kaminsky, Isaiah Buggs, Alex Anzalone. Okay, cool. Bringing back players that you have continuity with. All right, we're all on the same page. Everything's looking up and up. We're looking forward to the NFL draft come April. Everything's looking great. Everybody's having good conversations, positive vibes. And then Sunday night happens. And if you're not sure what the fuck happened Sunday night, the Lions decided to completely drop a nuclear bomb on us by acquiring C.J. Gardner-Johnson on a 1-year deal, which, honest to God, nobody saw coming. Not in your wildest dreams would you have imagined him signing on a 1-year deal in Detroit. And here he is. And now you're suddenly talking about one of the better 10, 12 rosters in the NFL. Mm-hmm. And it's still young. And there's no money committed for the long term. Look at these signings. Emmanuel Moseley, 1 year. Gardner-Johnson, 1 year. Gardner-Johnson balls out this year, let's say. 25 years old. You opposed to giving him a 4-year extension? Making him one of the highest paid corners? You can technically do that. Or you can do what the Eagles have shown you can do, which is draft and sign free agents, and then when the free agents leave that are expensive, you insert rookie year 2, year 3 guy.
Which I think that'll be Brad's philosophy as well.
How do you not?
It's
because he drafts so well that, again, you're not going to be forced to pay anybody because he can just keep finding talent. Now, you're going to have to re-sign some guys, but still, I think that's the correct way to do it, how the Eagles
Let me ask you guys this.
Operating.
Let me ask you guys this. And, Jeff, I want you to take lead here on this conversation, which is forget everything you know now. Prior to free agency, forget everything you now know. If I would have told you David Montgomery, Emmanuel Moseley, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Cam Sutton, let's be real, bro to bro, you probably would have laughed. You would have told me no chance. I am shocked by this free agency period from Brad Holmes. I was not expecting this at all. They are all in, yet they're not committed financially in the long run. So they can always retool and rebuild. They've set themselves up to honestly have one of the 5-6 best projects in the NFL. And what I mean by project is, you have a team, a roster, a coach, a development process that really isn't going anywhere anytime soon, right? The Chiefs have Mahomes. They're always going to be relevant because of him. You could argue the same for the Bengals with Burrow and Jamar Chase. They're always going to be relevant. The Jaguars project right now looks really good. You look across to you can look at the Niners. Short term, but man, that's a win now team. Well, what about the long term? Who's got it set up for the long term? You could look at the Lions. You can look at the Jaguars. You can look at the Broncos. I know Russell Wilson, there's a lot of questions, but Sean Payton, that defense, you'd imagine he'd get more out of Russell Wilson. The Broncos could be something. There's a lot of good projects in the NFL. Philly, of course. They've really set the standard for how to build out in free agency and still draft well. That's been impressive the last few years. So I've been impressed, Jeff. It was a free agency class I didn't expect. that I'm very, very excited for.
And I think that's the difference between the Lions and other rosters. You brought up the 49ers, the Eagles, and the Eagles are a little more, similar in this aspect of you're doing it with young players. Like usually rosters, you say win now, and when you hear those words, typically it's a veteran roster. Maybe you mix in some young players, but for the most part, the 49ers, mostly older players, veteran players. You bring up the Eagles, a lot of older players, especially the guys that they're bringing back, but they've drafted well. The Lions are mostly young players, and they have veterans at key spots, obviously a quarterback, the offensive line. Even though you have Penei Sewell in there, for the most part, it's more of a veteran group. That defensive line, extremely still young as well. So the Lions, I think the most impressive part is last year seeing from 1-6 to 8-2. Yes, the record's impressive, but they did it with young players. That's the most impressive thing. Guys that are going to be under contract for the next 4 years plus. So that's really the big difference with what the Lions are doing. And I think that's why, when we talk about these things, I constantly bring up they're not going anywhere, because not only are they going to be here next year and the year after that, but they're going to continue to improve. If you're winning with a roster full of 29, 30, 32-year-olds, you pretty much know what you have. The Lions have a roster right now where you can't really put too much of a ceiling on them because we know Aiden going into his second year. I don't want to sit here and say I know Aiden's ceiling already. Kirby, we don't know how good he can be. There's a lot of players that you have yet to really know. And then you have money to spend. Brad goes out in free agency, and to answer what you said earlier, I didn't expect this at all from Brad. Not that he spent significant money, but how aggressive he would, doubling up on corner, getting another nickel, getting a safety in Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. His ability to go not only sign the right guys, but get them on a risk-free, high-reward deal, which he's been able to do. DJ Chark, Emmanuel Mosley, and now Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. It's impressive because in past years, you might be able to draft well, but you're going to botch something. Like Brad, he might be able to draft well, but maybe he overpays guys in free agency. It seems like Brad checks both of those boxes. And we talk about good organizations, the Chargers, you can bring up the Chiefs, the Bills, just organizations that have drafted well, have signed the right free agents, haven't got themselves in cap hell, and haven't been able to get themselves out of it. The Lions, with Brad Holmes, are trending in that same direction, in my opinion.
I'm a savage. Whatever I want to do.
Who would have thought?
He's absolutely a savage.
Who would have thought? Honest to God. This town has never, and I mean it, never experienced a competent, let alone excellent general manager for their football team.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the last three you've had. Bob Quinn. Whoa. Home run. Martin Mayhew. Wow. Matt Millen. Even better. That's been my lifetime. It's been Matt Millen, Martin Mayhew, Bob Quinn. That's the fist up my ass the Lions have given me in my lifetime. Some of you more than that. But then, after all the fisting, they've given me Brad Holmes. Whoops. I think that was me, by the way, Jeff. Now they've given you and I Brad Holmes. And he's the best. He just is. He knows how to operate. He treats the team like a business. He's not a Jerry Jones where he's going to give Zeke a contract he has no business giving him. This is about production. This is about fit. And the Lions are going to build one of the better rosters in the NFL over the next 5 years. And I don't think it's crazy to say they're going to be Super Bowl contenders within the next year or two.
And just hearing that out of your mouth is like
Well, there's a lot of factors that play into that, but I'm talking about the roster.
Right.
I'm not questioning the roster at all. Now, Jared Goff's play, I don't think can be questioned at the moment. Dan Campbell's coaching, I think is still up for debate. He has to show something this year. Don't start 1-6. Don't throw away 3-4 games this year because of fourth quarter decisions. Do I think he really improved down the stretch? I do. But I don't think he's a guarantee. Not saying he won't work.
Mm-hmm.
But you still have questions at least. You have a few questions, concerns, clock management, etc. But you're a lot further along in trusting Dan Campbell than I would say you would have been 7 weeks into the last NFL season.
And I feel like that was kind of me with Goff as well. Like you said, you're not too concerned about Goff, and I would agree to some extent, but you saw the two different...
He answered some questions
Yeah,
down
the second
stretch.
half of the
and
season
you could argue
he did.
for Dan as well.
8-2, Jared Goff, 15 touchdowns, no interceptions. So they both answered those questions. I think, truthfully, both of them are going to be under a microscope this year because Jared Goff is, as much as people appreciate and love Jared, and I get all that. He played really well this year, especially the second half. Got to go out and do it again. And again, you're going to have Jameson. The offense is still intact. You got Ben Johnson. So there's not really much of an excuse for him not to. Same with Dan. Roster's getting better. There's not really an excuse to start under 500. So you're going to find out a lot about those two guys.
I don't mean this in a bad way. Hear me out. Please understand what I'm saying. But if I told you Dan Campbell develops into a top 8 coach in the NFL, top 8, hell, even top 10, what's the Lions' record this upcoming season?
11 wins.
See, I would go 12-5. I'd be so confident. And I think Dan, yes, young. It's his first head coaching job. He's made a lot of mistakes. He showed a lot of promise down the stretch. We'll see. We'll see if he puts it together in this year. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm not confident he won't. I think he will. How do you not? Look at the roster. Look at the players. Look at the energy in the building. You have Ben Johnson returning. Aaron Glenn, down the stretch, the defense did get better. You give Goff a top 10 defense this year, you're winning 12 games. It's that simple.
And you know what I've noticed too? The whole philosophy with getting former players that are now coaches, we encouraged it a lot when the Lions first did it, with Aaron Glenn, Deuce Staley, so on and so forth, Dan Campbell, obviously. But now you're seeing the kind of the fruits of the labor pay off, right? With CJ, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, with new additions, and you see the relationship that Aaron Glenn and Chauncey had dating back all the way to high school. And even Dan Campbell to some extent. All the players, newly signed players too, talking about, oh yeah, Dan, from an outsider's perspective, just looks like a guy I want to go play for. The players, former player, coach, kind of what they've been doing, it's attracting guys. And players want to play for guys like that. So again, when it was first done, we're like, okay, we'll see how this goes. Mostly all former players, it's working out in their favor. Seems like guys want to go play for coaches like that. It's the new way of the league.
And that's great.
But can you win games?
But you got to win games. You got to win playoff games. You got to win division titles.
Yeah. Those things matter.
That's how you cement. That's how you mark your footprint here at this here in this town. It's not about just winning games. It's not about getting to the playoffs. But I'm telling you guys now, from today's show until the first weekend of the NFL season, anybody that wants to call in, leave a comment, DM myself or Jeff, mention us, whatever it may be. To any of you doubting what the Lions are doing right now, I think is extremely disingenuous of you. I think you're a fraud. And I think you're a liar. To doubt what this team is doing, it's undeniable. This is one of the 10 best rosters in the NFL for this upcoming season.
They almost squeaked into our top 10 last year. Just how they were playing, not as a roster.
Speaking of top 10, coming up next, my top 10 list, where the Lions fall.